Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League will be Rocksteady's first major release since Arkham Knight in 2015. It's still set in the same Arkham universe with some familiar faces returning. Although we are not controlling Batman this time, but the members of the Suicide Squad. And after watching a lot of the new gameplay that was released, I got to see that they are doing some interesting things with the gameplay that weren't really clear at first. Like, there is more depth than I expected. Metropolis has of course been taken over by Brainiac, who has turned the population and most of the superheroes into his personal brainwashed slaves. Which is why we as Task Force X, consisting of Harley Quinn, Deadshot, King Shark and Captain Boomerang, are sent in to deal with the situation, and at a preview event people were already able to fight the Flash in a pretty hectic fight. Links to the sources we are using in this video will be in the description, by the way. But what is really clear in this encounter is that understanding your character is the key to success, with traversal being a huge part of this. Each character has their own means of traversing Metropolis, so Deadshot uses a jetpack and Harley Quinn uses a drone and a grappling hook, for example. But no matter what character you play, traversal is not as simple as holding a button to fly or leap to your desired location, because your traversal abilities like your jetpack work on a small cooldown. So instead you have to chain double jumps, wall runs and your traversal abilities to keep up your momentum. Each character's traversal has their own little quirks that help you go even faster, like Harley's ability to perform a point launch when grappling up a building, or Captain Boomerang's super sprint that triggers if his traversal boomerang hits a solid surface. Traversal abilities can also be upgraded to increase things like jump height or distance for King Shark, so it seems like there is a lot of depth to this system. And this kind of bleeds through into combat, as there are also skills that reward you for staying on the move or being airborne while fighting. But even without your crazy movement abilities thrown into the mix, there is a lot more depth to the combat system than you might think at first glance. There is a lot of synergy between your ranged and melee attacks, for example. Hitting an enemy with a melee attack launches them in the air, and if you then quickly shoot at them with your firearms, you will score a guaranteed crit. Vice versa, repeatedly shooting enemies in the legs will stagger them, allowing you to perform a melee shield harvest attack which will refill your own shields. So kind of like Doom, your best option to stay alive is by staying on the offense so you can recharge your shield. There's also a way to cancel dangerous enemy attacks, kind of like a ranged parry or counter if you will. Some enemy attacks will trigger a warning icon, and if you then strike that enemy with a special ranged attack called a counter shot, you will cancel them out of that ability. So all of that combines for a pretty fast-paced experience, as you want to stay on the move with your traversal abilities, counter incoming enemy attacks and get into melee for a shield harvest if you do get hit. If you, by the way, enjoyed the video so far, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for way more Suicide Squad content. Now in combat you want to skillfully chain your different moves together to increase your combo meter. While it might seem like a Devil May Cry-esque meter to measure how stylish your performance is, there are actually a lot of skills that require you to hit a specific combo count in order for them to activate. And let's talk about skills actually, as they are one of the main ways for you to specialize your character to fit your preferred style of gameplay. Each character has 3 different skill trees, and while the individual skills are different, they follow a roughly similar template, with one skill tree being for damage, one for survivability and one for traversal. While I don't think it's possible to unlock all skills on a single character, previews did note you can freely respec at any given point, so you can experiment to your heart's content. The game also handily labels each skill with the playstyle it's appropriate for, so you can even see which skills in a different tree are useful for your current build. And like I said, a lot of these skills will trigger once you hit a specific combo count, like Captain Boomerang's Jackpot, which increases firearm damage and gives you a chance to make countered enemy shield harvestable when your combo meter is above 5. So just like traversal, momentum is key for success, as the more moves you pull off without getting hit and losing your combo meter, the more powerful you become. Another way to get more powerful and customize your build is of course by earning new weapons and equipment. And since Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is basically a looter shooter, you can expect a wide range of gear from common to legendary for you to collect and use in crafting the best build. Each character can equip 2 firearms, a melee weapon, a grenade and a shield and traversal mod. Weapons come in different categories and characters are limited on what weapon types they can use. So for instance, Deadshot can only equip assault rifles, sniper rifles and pistols, whereas Captain Boomerang only uses shotguns, sniper rifles and submachine guns. Like Borderlands, there are different weapon manufacturers with their own characteristics, with LexCorp weapons having a more horizontal recoil pattern and Armortech being the high damage, high recoil manufacturer, for example. But Suicide Squad also adds Infamous and Notorious loot to the loop that adds some even crazier buffs. Infamous items are part of a set, and the more items from a particular set you equip, the more bonuses you activate. And then the notorious weapons are the equivalent to the exotic or legendary rarity items in other looter shooters with unique perks that you cannot find on any other weapon. One example that was shown was the Black Mask minigun, which applies this mark on enemies when they are hit. If you mark 3 enemies within 6 seconds, all marked targets will trigger a fiery explosion that also burns nearby enemies. There's also a Boomerang melee weapon that can suspend multiple enemies in mid-air that looks really powerful. And those are just 2 examples. I'm already excited to find out what the rest are when we get our hands on the full game. And like I said, we will see many familiar Arkham characters, and some will join you in the Hall of Justice, your base of operations. Penguin, as an arms dealer, offers you the ability to craft new weapons from looted materials or to modify existing ones with new parts. Not sure what those do exactly, but at least there seems to be some amount of visual customization for weapons. If you want to get into the nitty-gritty of your stats, Toyman can help you reroll the attributes on your weapons so you can make them better fit your playstyle. And finally, Ivy is able to augment weapons and grenades with afflictions, which are the game's elemental effects like frost and fire. What is interesting though is that every affliction also seems to have a downside, like freezing enemies will make them vulnerable to firearms but highly resistant to melee damage, so you have to carefully consider what elements you combine with what builds. Next to the loot grind, there should be a cutscene heavy main story campaign, including those Justice League boss fights I talked about earlier, but a large part of your time will also be spent free roaming the open world area of Metropolis. There are some side activities to find on your way to the next main quest, although previews gave the impression that these activities are kind of what you'd expect. A lot of defend this point from X waves of enemies, rescue hostages and deliver them to a save point, you know the stuff. One activity that did catch my eye was a side quest involving a flying vehicle, which included a gunner turret for a second co-op player to jump into. While these certainly look very powerful, they are rigged to explode after a certain time, so use of them is limited. PlayStation Access did mention the vehicle can be unlocked to summon for later use, so while I don't think you can use it to explore the city, you can call it in as a piece of ordnance during a difficult fight. And while you can enjoy Suicide Squad as a single player game, an online connection is required to play, although Rocksteady has already confirmed they are working on an offline mode as well that will come after launch. When playing solo, your squad will be filled with AI companions, and what's especially cool is that these AI companions can also be based on characters from your friends. As reported by content creator Laajune, if your friends are offline, you can have their character join your squad, and if you complete any activities with them, your friends will get some rewards in their inbox when they boot the game back up. So a really cool feature that allows you to earn loot even when you're not playing the game. Still, when playing in co-op with other players, you will be able to apply more strategies, and your group can contain more than one of each character, so you're not limited by what your buddies are playing. And while I could find no official confirmation, co-op also seemed to be untethered in the previews, meaning all 4 players can explore different parts of the city without limitations. However, there will always be a team leader who decides which activity to start, and that position is actually awarded to the person who scored the highest in the previous mission. So kind of a competitive aspect to story missions, which is pretty fun. I also quickly want to touch on the game's UI, as I've seen a lot of backlash in regards to the amount of stuff on screen. And while I definitely understand the critique, many previews reported that a lot of these UI elements, like health bars and damage numbers, can be turned off based on your preferences. There are of course still a ton of particle effects in play, but if you are distracted by tons of numbers flying across the screen, you can remove them. And we already know that the game should get a ton of post-launch content. The way it seems to work is that every season will have one new playable character and a new region added to Metropolis. There seem to be 2 episodes per season that include new narrative content and probably new loot to earn too. One of the highlights, according to data miner Miller, will be a return to Gotham, which should be included as a new playable area in Season 3, with probably a lot of nods to the previous Arkham games. I am sure we will at least get to that point in the post-launch campaign, as this content is usually made well in advance. But we of course have to wait and see how long the game will be supported, which will depend on if it's successful. All the content should be added for free by the way, but there will be a pay track in the Battle Pass and many cosmetics that we can pay for in a dedicated store. There will be a new insider video talking about the post-launch up very soon that should clear some things up. And I want to keep an open mind, because if the game is fun to play, then having new reasons to return throughout the year will add a lot of hours of playtime. Remember to leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe, as we'll have a ton of Suicide Squad content when the game launches. If you want, you can watch our previous video on the biggest games releasing this year by clicking on the screen. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.